I really didn't have an appreciation before reading this book about how much extinction was an ongoing process. There is definitely a tendency for people to think that extinction is something in the past and it's not happening now. That's really not the case. There is no species so abundant that it can't go extinct in the course of a few decades. As we've seen, the passenger pigeon went the most abundant bird on the planet with a population in the billions to a single individual left in 1914. So I think that just reading extinct birds helped to give a genuinely life-changing perspective on the idea of extinction and how precarious every species is, really. And I include our own species in that as well.
Yeah.
There's nothing special about humans that will stop them from going extinct. It's the fate of every species sooner or later.
Yeah, that's a reason why some humans are trying so hard to colonize Mars as a safety buffer, which is going to be fascinating.
Yeah, at the same time as destroying the one habitable planet.
Yeah, I definitely will add that to my reading list. Sounds fascinating.
I recommend it.
I've heard of passenger pigeons. I had no idea that 1 billion of them were around.
They were, in the 19th century, there was more passenger pigeons than people.
Wow.
Only 2 decades of persecution for them to turn extinct.
So was it just persecution that made them extinct? What was the reason behind that?
There was a lot of direct persecution. They were easy to catch. They flocked in huge numbers, and they traveled as enormous groups of millions and millions of birds. People could just chuck a stick up into a tree and brain a dozen of them. They'd all just fall down. So there was that. And I think Errol Fuller's actually also written a book just about the passenger pigeon, which is worth reading as well. The expansion of the railways in North America allowed people to hunt passenger pigeons in the south and have them freighted up to the north to the markets, which had a big negative effect as well. And, they were also, you can imagine, if several million birds land in your fields, there's not going to be much of your crop left by the time they've left. So they were poisoned and fed to hogs as a protein source because farmers didn't want them eating their crops.
Yeah, and why were they so abundant? Because there would obviously be predators around hunting them. So
yeah, so they were just a sort of safety in numbers. That was their survival technique. And part of the reason for their downfall, there was a critical threshold over which, if there weren't enough passenger pigeons, that affected their ability to find a mate, that affected their ability to breed, and death by 1,000 cuts led to their population collapsing, and then it becomes an extinction vortex. So you have not enough passenger pigeons to replenish their population levels, and that accelerates as fewer next generations are being made.
Yeah, and were the pigeons that were used as messengers, was that a separate species?
That's just rocked up the kind of feral pigeons that you see all over the place today. That's what messenger pigeons were. The phrase still pigeon comes from passenger pigeon. A still pigeon, a kind of patsy. That one of the ways that they would hunt passenger pigeons is catch one, tie it to a stool, and then let it call out, and all its friends would come and they would hatch the whole lot.
Yeah. And it's just
It's
fascinating.
extinct, but it survives in language, which is sad.
It's fascinating how some animals are so easy to catch. Were they not afraid of humans?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, been lucky enough to spend some time in the Galapagos Islands, which is one of the last kind of naive ecosystems left. And the animals there aren't afraid of people. You have birds landing on your head. Giant tortoises will come right up to you. You can swim beside the penguins. We kind of have to assume that this was the natural way of things. Humans don't particularly look like predators. We're not that scary. We don't have sharp teeth. We don't have claws. And you have to imagine that when people first moved into areas where people hadn't been before, like Australia, North America, Northern Eurasia, the animals would not have had a predator response to us. They would have treated us like any other animal around the water hole. And it's only later they learned, perhaps too late, what a threat humans can be.
Is that because we maybe persecuted them or hunted them or just kind of expanded too much for them to exist? Is the ones that survive, the animals that have survived now tend to be the most skittish ones that actually end up surviving? Is that why so many animals today, like foxes and badgers, won't come near us?
Mammals as a whole are quite intelligent. They have behavioral plasticity that allows them to recognize threats and have that information transmitted not just through their genes, but by their own kind of social nature. So adult animals teaching their young to avoid humans. Yeah, and certainly there will have been some selection as well, in the same sense that the opposite has happened during domestication. So we've selected for animals that are happy to interact with humans, and over generations selected the most friendly wolves to become dogs, or the most friendly wildcats to become domestic cats. For sure, the same things happened in the opposite direction with the wild populations, that if you were too friendly with humans, then you're more likely to end up in a pie.